Hi guys, so another edition of the Sophie Awards, and today it is concentrating on film and TV, so all the best of 2015, and I'll reiterate, this is just my opinion, so the things I've enjoyed or the things I've been watching, so it's obviously things I've missed, so feel free to comment below with your opinions, recommendations and anything you've enjoyed this year. My TV hero of the year can only be one man and one man only, and that is Noel Fitzpatrick of Supervet fame. In the UK, hopefully you will have watched this, but for those people that live in other countries, it's a Channel 4 series at this very specialist veterinary surgery, a referral place where normal vets will, if there's something they can't do, if they've got an animal they can't fix or cure, he's kind of the last hope because he's able to do things that no one else in the country or perhaps even the world can do in terms of reconstructive surgery, you know, changing knee joints, hip joints, just sorting out those really difficult things that other vets might think, okay, it's sensible to put the animal down, but he finds a way to make that animal have a longer and a happy and healthy life. It's not just the fact that he's able to do these things, that he's got the intelligence and that talent for doing it. He's clearly so passionate about the animals and the work he does, but he's also willing to sacrifice his own life. Like, he lives at the surgery, he basically lives in his little tiny office which is just full of stuff. He doesn't have his own life really, his life revolves around the animals. And sometimes when there's a really sad case and the owners can't afford the really expensive treatment, sometimes quite often actually, he's willing to do it on the house because you can see how much it means to that family and wants to save the animal. So, oh, getting emotional. So TV comedy series. There's a few that come to mind. One of them is Gogglebox, which I guess could come under reality TV. And for those that don't have Gogglebox, it's basically filming inside lots of people's living rooms around the UK. Lots of different demographics are covered. You basically just see what they say as they watch the programmes that we all watch. And I've got to say, when I first heard about this programme, I thought, what lazy television? I mean, that's crap, why would we want to watch that? But it is priceless. It's like perfect TV actually. And you can relate to it because you know that you shout at the telly yourself and you say things you shouldn't say or embarrassing things, and you have a scratch and you do say weird things to your partner or your family when you're watching telly. So I love Gogglebox, so that was like a surprise favourite for me, if I'm honest. Another Channel 4 thing, and Channel 4 are actually coming up trumps on this list, was Cucumber, which was a series and a kind of a whole package of programmes devised by Russell T Davies, who you may know as the guy behind Doctor Who, the Doctor Who revamp at least, about lots of different types of relationships, not necessarily the conventional ones, although what is conventional anyway? So like a series about gay relationships, lesbian relationships. One was about a guy called Henry, who's a middle-aged gay man, and it was about his relationship. And because of the adverts and trailers about this, I didn't think I'd be into it because it was always bright coloured and it seemed very kind of over the top in its style. But when I watched it, there was a lot of depth to it. There was a lot more to it than just, you know, the odd bit of camp humour. It was quite touching at times, it was sad, it had everything, and I really enjoyed it. Another Channel 4 one is Catastrophe. A more realistic look at a relationship and the things that happen, the things you don't plan for. It's with Rob Delaney and Sharon, oh, what's her name? I'll put it up, Sharon Hogan, I think, who are both like comedians, and they actually met on Twitter because they liked each other's work and they wanted to work together, and they have great chemistry. The things that happen in their relationship, embarrassing, awkward, etc. It's just very real, and they don't hold back. They say gross things, they do gross things. Yeah, so it's really good. And it's nice to see a couple that are in their 40s who can still be sexy, still funny. Yeah, that they can hold their show, and you don't have to be these really like young model types to draw in an audience. Like, people are loving these real people. Best reality show stroke competition. I obviously always love The Apprentice, and I love The Great British Bake Off. Every season I love that. MasterChef, always love it as well. But in terms of reality type show, I think First Dates has the crown. It's probably my most enjoyed watch of the entire year. I look forward to 10 o'clock on a Thursday more than I probably should. If you've been on a date, you can relate to quite a few of the scenarios, you know, worrying what you should say, what you shouldn't, realising you said something you shouldn't, when you're not feeling the other person or when you can tell they're not feeling you, the nerves, the excitement, the chemistry, all that, and you get to watch it while snacking, hopefully. And it's just great, and there's been so many of those moments that make you go, oh, and make you feel all gooey and mushy and lovely. So I love First Dates, and I love all the staff as well, like the guy, the concierge guy, what do you call him? The host, the French guy. He's just so poetic, and it's like a, what's the word? I've got like absolute brain fog today. But anyway, he's like, it's like a god, like romance god. So best drama series, and this is a Netflix one, and this is a US drama, and it's called Bloodlines. I thoroughly recommend any of you that have Netflix to watch it. I think they've just been commissioned another series, so that's really good. And they did leave some things open, so I was hoping that there would be a second series. And it's based in the Florida Keys. I guess it's a thriller and a drama surrounding a family. I really don't want to say anything that could ruin it, but the acting is incredible. Sissy Spacek, who's the original Carrie, is the matriarch of the family. And then the other actors, I always get his name wrong, it's Kyle something. Kyle Chandler plays one of the brothers, and then Ben Mendelsohn is his naughty brother. So a lot of it's surrounding Danny, who's played by Ben Mendelsohn, and the stuff that he does, and it kind of destroys the family. But like I said, don't want to give too much away, but watch it. So I absolutely adored the first series of Broadchurch. It's one of my favourite series of all time. I was absolutely hooked from start to finish. It made me feel all sorts of things, partly because actually the story was a little bit close to home. But the acting was incredible. Yeah, with David Tennant and obviously Coleman as well. So obviously there's huge anticipation about the second, and I have to admit that it didn't even come close to being as good as the first series. That said, I was still very excited about it coming back to our screens on ITV, and I did enjoy it. I think it's just hard when you have such a good first series. I think it was always going to probably pale in comparison, and so it probably seemed less good than it was because you were thinking how good the first one was. And if you don't know what Broadchurch is, it's a crime, murder, family type drama, and the whole time you don't know who's done it, and every episode you kind of change your mind of who you think has done it, so it's really good at manipulating you along the way. Best romantic film of the year. If I'm honest, I haven't seen that many romantic films apart from going over all my old favourites, like When Harry Met Sally, Sleepless in Seattle, and all those, because I've got Netflix now, so I'm just like feasting on them at all times. One I did actually go to the cinema to see was Age of Adeline, so by default it wins my best romantic film of the year. I didn't go with many hopes of it being that great, if I'm honest. Because a lot of romantic comedies are very kind of, you can predict what's going to happen, very straightforward, very formulaic, and a little bit cheesy, which is fine, but you just know what you're going to get. But this one actually had a decent twist. It was quite innovative, I guess, as romantic comedies, well, it wasn't comedy, as romances go. Blake Lively is obviously stunning to look at. Because it was set through lots of periods of time, you got to see lots of different outfits and great fashion and costumes. The main guy in it is my new crush, like I'm literally, he's just beautiful. And that was where I discovered him, so I guess it's given me a lot. It's given me a lot in my life. Right, and Harrison Ford actually was really good in that film, and I don't ever think of him in that kind of role, but he was brilliant. So actually, if you like romantic films and you've got a couple hours spare, give it a go. You might be pleasantly surprised. Best offbeat film stroke indie film. I like kind of small budget films and films that are maybe called quirky, but because a lot of them have done so well in the last decade or so, I feel like a lot of films try and copy the template. So you always have like music that's with a little, what's the little guitar called? I don't know, it's like that like pinky plonky guitar music with that, the vocals that are kind of naive and quirky, and they're all just trying too hard to be alternative and indie. Anyway, I've gone off on a tangent then. But anyway, whether or not this is actually an indie film or not, it has that kind of vibe, and that is Me, Earl and a Dying Girl. This is about a couple of school friends who spend their spare time creating films themselves. So you've got lots of nice little parts of the film that see what they've created in their special ways. They find out that one of their classmates has got cancer, and one of them gets a bit closer to that girl, and it's just about that relationship. Actually, yet again, I don't want to give anything away, but funny, darkly funny at times, sad, heartbreaking, shocking. It's got a bit of everything. It's lovely to look at as well. I went through all the emotions watching that, so I really enjoyed that. Best documentary now goes to Making a Murderer, which is on Netflix now, and the fact that so many people are talking about on Twitter says to you how kind of impactful this bit of filmmaking is. Oh God, I only finished watching it yesterday and I'm still in shock. I'm still like reeling. I'm still going over everything in my head. It's a story relating to a guy called Stephen Avery, who went to jail, and I can't really say much more without giving away what happens, and I really wouldn't want to ruin this for you. So watch it and tell me what you think about it, because I really want to talk to people about what they think, because it's just so like mind-blowing. Best documentary in general, and this is one of the only ones I saw at the cinema. I actually was lucky enough to go to the press screening of it with Brett Morgan, who was the director and creator of the film, and that's Montage of Heck. And this isn't just like any other documentary. This is multi-sensory, there's animation in there, there's audio tapes, there's footage you've never seen before that he found like in piles of stuff that he looked through when he was trying to make this film. It's just, yet again, you go through all the emotions, and part of you wonders whether Kurt would have been happy with it being made, but at the same time you're so glad you saw it. Perhaps it does kind of affect how you think of Courtney Love. If you already have kind of a view of her that is negative, you might come out thinking more positively about her. I don't know, you tell me if you had that. And I was actually, after watching it, I tweeted Brett and just said I'd love to chat to him and interview him, and we ended up meeting up in a hotel and having an hour chat about the film, and they're on my channel if you want to see that and see what he said about the film. Obviously he was very passionate about it, so when I did challenge some of the things about it, he wasn't overly happy about that, but I did want to see what he thought about certain things and why he did certain things and why he made certain decisions. So it might be a bit tense at times, but I hope you found it entertaining. This is really hard, if I'm honest with you. Partially because I have a terrible memory and I can't remember the films I've seen, but I do remember coming out of The Martian and thinking that I enjoyed that, because I think Matt Damon's a great actor, first of all, but I think what's great about The Martian was that it had a sense of humour. A lot of sci-fi films or films to do with space, they can be a bit cold, a bit sterile, because of the science basis of the film and the topic, I guess. But with this, they put some humour into it. Despite the fact he was in this awful situation, you still laughed with him at certain moments, because certain things happened that was just so ridiculous, or so like, oh my god, can anything else happen? Then obviously Star Wars I only saw a few days ago, and although I don't think it's my favourite film of the year, the fact that J.J. Abrams was able to deliver a film that didn't disappoint, when it has such a legacy, when it has such a fan base and such a cult following, like, bravo, because that's no mean feat. That's a huge task, and he nailed it. Like, it's pretty close to being perfect. Harrison and Chewbacca had some of the best lines, I've got to say, but I think we've seen a new star as well with Daisy Ridley. She's actually going to be my one to watch for 2015, because obviously if you start in a Star Wars film, things are going to go for her. I also watched Still Alice a couple of weeks ago on Netflix, and I wanted to see it at the cinema, but because of the topic it is, it's not one of those films that you feel like you have to see it on a big screen, because it's not about effects and spectacular explosions and things like that. It's an emotional story, and I think that it's actually better to see it in your own house, just in like on your own, so you can have that private moment with the film, and it is very affecting. You will get emotional because it's a tough subject, and if any of you, like I, have seen someone go through or suffer with dementia or Alzheimer's, like so many of the scenes you'll be able to relate to, and it's heartbreaking. But Julianne Moore, like, she has to be one of the best actresses of our time, and once again, the performance was flawless. In terms of the most anticipated films of the year, at the beginning of the year we had 50 Shades of Grey. Obviously there was huge buzz and hype on the run up to that. And obviously we knew in the papers about the difficulties between Sam Taylor Wood and E.L. James, who was the writer of the book. There was some clashing, so a lot of us were worried that it would be an absolute disaster. And let's face it, some of the reviews weren't that favourable from critics and fans, but it still was a monster success in terms of sales and people going to the cinema. Even though it wasn't perhaps a great film, I think people were still glad to see the books being brought to life. Now, I wasn't that excited about the film because I haven't read any of the books. That said, all of my friends have read every single one and are obsessed with them. So I kind of was hyped up because they were all hyped up, and we made a big night of it. My expectations were very low because of everything I heard, and I know that the writing of the book isn't that great. But because my expectations were low, you know, I thought it was fine. It didn't blow my mind, but in terms of that sort of film, it was okay, and I didn't have any kind of vision of how I thought Christian Grey should be, and that was the main issue for my friends, that they didn't think that Jamie Dornan was how they imagined Christian to be. That said, I thought Dakota was great in her role. Like, I found her quite relatable and quite endearing. But at the end of the year, undeniably, it was Star Wars. It was all about Star Wars the last few months. That has been, I'd say that wins the crown for the most hype, and thankfully it has been worth all the hype. Woo! My Fav DVD purchase of the year was Fury, which actually came out at the end of 2014, I think, and that is a war film starring Brad Pitt and Logan Lerman, who you might watch in Perks of Being a Wallflower. It's also got Shia LaBeouf in there, and this is probably one of my all-time favourite war-type films. You have to prepare yourself though, because there are some gory bits, there's some pretty intensely savage bits in it. If you look at the synopsis of what the story is, not much actually happens. Like, they don't go many different places. It's a relatively small core cast, yet you are enthralled all the way through it. It keeps your attention, and there's enough kind of little incidences along the way that, you know, you feel like you get those big moments and those big emotional moments. I just thought it was an incredible film, and I think it was one of those films that kind of was released at the wrong time, so it didn't get the award attention it should have got, but I think a great film. So that's my film and telly picks of the year, or some of them. I've also got to say, it didn't come out this year, but I just watched Artifact, which is the documentary My 30 Seconds to Mars, which is on Netflix. And if you're in a band, if you're in the music industry, or if you just care about justice and fairness, then watch this documentary. You won't believe the stuff that goes on. It kind of blows your mind and makes you worry for all the bands that you know, or that you're friends with, or that you love, because you just think they're in a really hopeless and tricky situation. So I recommend you watch that too. So yeah, I'll actually go now, and I hope you've enjoyed that, and I'll see you in the next one.